Owning a home is full of surprises. Some wonderful, some not so much. And when something breaks, it can feel like the whole day unravels. That's why HomeServe exists. For as little as $4.99 a month, you'll always have someone to call. A trusted professional ready to help, bringing peace of mind to 4.5 million homeowners nationwide. For plans starting at just $4.99 a month, go to homeserve.com. That's homeserve.com. Not available everywhere. Most plans range between $4.99 to $11.99 a month your first year. Terms apply on covered repairs.
Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast, a space to pause, breathe, and come back to yourself, even in the middle of a full and busy life. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and in each episode, we explore mindfulness for real life, simple practices, reflections, tools to help you feel grounded, present, and connected to what matters most to you. So let's settle in and let's get centered. Welcome back to the Center in the City podcast. I'm your host, Wade Brill, and I am so glad you are here. Today on the pod, we are talking with Dr. Krys Hines, aka Dr. Krys, about how we can be more embodied throughout our days when we're sitting at the computer, while we're standing at our desk, while we're at the office, while we're at home, and what it's like to be more in our bodies in a world where we're trained to be in our heads. I knew when I met Krys that I wanted her to come on the podcast because she just has such enthusiasm for the world of physical therapy and for supporting people managing pain and supporting them feeling empowered to be in their bodies. And it's really interesting because we live in a world where a lot of us are trained that, if I am exercising daily or a few times a week, I am doing a good job. I am doing enough. But what we talk about with Dr. Krys is that we need daily movement. Movement is different than exercise. Movement is about intentionally moving the bodies in different directions and angles and planes at various movements throughout the day. So Krys on this episode shares some ways that we can stand up, do some air squats, do some push-ups, maybe offer some stretching to our body, or maybe we're taking these mini walks throughout the day, as I like to call them, centered walks, an opportunity to leave our desks, to get out of our head, get into our bodies, to help us even emotionally and mentally regulate. And I'll link the centered walks in the show notes if you're interested. There are all of these creative ways that we could be taking breaks from sitting or keeping our body static and instead being conscious to move more. So I can't wait for you to listen to this episode and learn so much from Dr. Krys like I did. A little bit more about Dr. Krys is she founded KH Ergo and Wellness, which is a Washington, D.C.-based ergonomics and workplace well-being company that helps organizations improve employee health, safety, and performance across in-person, remote, or hybrid work environments. You can learn more about Dr. Krys linked in the show notes, as well as her website. Wherever you are joining us, whether you are hopefully on a walk or moving around your house, I welcome you to settle in and let's get centered. Dr. Krys, welcome to the Center in the City podcast.
Hey, Wade, how are you?
I'm so good. I'm so excited to talk about our bodies today. And I feel like even being able to talk about, because I talk about the body a lot on this podcast, but to talk about it from the structural perspective is a different angle. And I'm really excited for you to share your wisdom with the audience. And I'd love to kick us off by having you share, what does being centered mean to you?
Being centered to me means that I am fully present in my body. It means that there's a little bit of space between me acknowledging something and however I'm going to respond. And so that is really in the embodiment of being centered for myself. It's just that little bit of space in between so that I can actually make choices instead of reacting to things.
I love that reminder of to be present in the body and that little space between our response to like take that beat to check in. Yeah. That's, my hope for us with Center in the City is like, how can we bring more of these pauses into our busy, full life? And when it comes to us living in our bodies, it's really challenging for a lot of listeners because they work a lot of their corporate jobs sitting at a desk, staring at a computer in meetings. A lot of the work is around, being in their head, strategic thinking, planning, Excel documents, which don't even like, that's just a whole other language to me. What are some of the ways that you work with people to get them to support them getting more connected to their bodies?
My background is in physical therapy, and so my entire career has been filled with educating people on how their body actually operates and based on their specific habits, how their body is operating and how do we change those habits. I think you hit the nail on the head, particularly for those who are our knowledge workers. And it's a cerebral job. So what I find is their head is craning towards the computer. Like that's where they're operating from. And when I think about being heart centered, which is our chest, that's going to be more of our upright posture. So there is a piece of that is in my work, but that's just not how I communicate it. A lot of ways that I get people to get into their body is it has to be with experiential learning. Like you have to move your body to learn your body. And I reposition them and then I educate them on what's going on biomechanically as well. And it's kind of a two-pronged attack of here's some new information and here's some new physical sensation. And that I find really kind of kicks the bucket down the road of, you know what, I might be interested in making a change because habits are really hard to change.
Yes, like how does somebody know that they need to get into their bodies because something needs to be reworked? The neural connection, mind body connection needs to be restructured in a way. Is it typically like pain that's bringing them in? Is it an injury? Is it like tension headaches?
Yeah, from my perspective, it's always going to be a pain stimulus or a negative stimulus. So I've had the physical pain that people have. I had a gentleman, he worked at a computer all day long and he's like, I can't play with my daughter. She's 3. I can't get on the ground. I can't pick her up. And when he came in, the middle of his back is arched over so far. Like, oh, well, not only are you craning over at the computer and now you're trying to lift this 30-pound child up on top of that, and that load is inconsistent. So pain is a big factor, dysfunction, but it has to be enough to interrupt something important to us.
Tell me more about that. That sounds juicy.
Yeah, so people can go a really long time with discomfort. So like, oh, there's discomfort and then it stops and I don't have to think about it anymore. But when that discomfort or pain interrupts something that they really want to do, that's more of a red flag. And that's kind of where we get into quality of life. And quality of life really impacts our decision making. So if it's like, you know what, the middle of my back hurts and I can't play with my daughter, that's a red flag. Flag on the play. I've got to do something about that. Let's say you are a knowledge worker and you've got a proposal due on Friday, but you're having these migraine headaches and it's impacting your ability to even prepare for a pitch. We've got to do something about that. I can't cut my food at home because my wrist hurts. I can't sleep at night. Sleep is a big one. Things that interrupt sleep. I can't sleep at night because of the pain and discomfort. And when I'm moving around, it feels better. People want to understand what's going on so they can stop that.
Oh, okay. So much juiciness there because you're right. Like we can tolerate pain or we think like, oh, this back pain is normal or it's become normal enough in my life that I just kind of suck it up and deal with it. But that it becomes a wake up call, it sounds like, once it starts to really affect the quality of life or affect our ability to do something that we care about or that we need to be doing.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's no pain, no gain is in our culture. And also, there's that threshold of, oh, this is getting to a point where that feels really uncomfortable. When it comes to sitting in the workplace, I just encourage people like this. That first initial discomfort, it's a signal to you. Even pain, it's really a conversation your body is having with you. Like, hey, pay attention to this right here, and maybe let's do something about it. So I encourage people to not wait until the discomfort is so high or that we're pushing into pain. It's like something feels off a little bit, like just attack it early. why not? Like you can either see me now or see me later. I'd rather you see me now and make some changes. And then when I see you, we're just having a really pleasant interaction.
Yeah. So what can support people? So obviously like okay, they're having pain or having something that's affecting their quality of life. Go see a physical therapist? Is that the next step that they should do? Would you recommend? Because I think sometimes people are like, "Oh, I need to be stretching more. I'll start going to yoga or I'll start going to Pilates." And they might not go straight to physical therapy yet. So like if listening to this and they're having that like, oh, aha moment of like,
Mhm.
yeah, I haven't been sleeping well because my neck is really bothering me. What would you recommend is the best next step?
So I'm gonna peel you back a little bit. So I always say movement is medicine, motion is lotion. And so if someone is stuck in some static positions, their first step is going to be to do more movement. If I'm doing more movement at home, because that's usually what we'll do anyway, it's like, oh, my neck hurts. Let me see if I can turn and rotate. And so kind of check that out, see if that makes any changes. If we are, and that's more of like the discomfort land. Once we get into pain and disrupting function, I recommend seeing a medical provider. But if we're getting into this intermittent pain, some intermittent dysfunction, that's your area for self problem solving, but it does require education, right? So I know a lot of people who are YouTube warriors that'll go find some videos, and I can't say 100% recommend it, but I do encourage self discovery. Right. So go try some mobility, some myofascial release, some stretching. If that helps, great. You just saved yourself some insurance money spent. And I think that that's wonderful. And you get to learn about your body during the process. And if you cannot get over the hump, you certainly need a medical provider. And my first go-to for most people would be physical therapy services. A lot of states have direct access where you can see them first without seeing your physician. And to me, what that means is we start addressing the problem already versus let me go see the doctor. Let me see what they have to say. They might send me a referral. Then I got to wait to do this. I might have to wait to get a scan. Like, go see the movement professionals to see what's there. I'm also open to folks seeing chiropractors as well. It just really depends on what's going on. But as a physical therapist, I'm going to opt for us first.
I love it. And I love, what was that phrase you said? Motion is lotion.
Lotion.
Oh, love it. Love it. Well, it's like why I think people are like, okay, I'm in physical pain, da da da, but it becomes like something else on their to-do list.
Mhm.
And I get so passionate about, and I know I can't do the work for people, but of like how we can just live in our body more. And so I'm curious, even for people who might not be managing physical pain, what are some ways that people can get into their bodies more while they're working at a desk?
Movement is going to be number one and just kind of checking in. I tend to think about, if you set up movement during your day, so like you got a timer, you've got sticky notes or whatever to get up and do 5 squats, do some desk push-ups, go when you go to the bathroom, go up a level and go up the stairs, come back down, like take the long way around, that you reset naturally. It's like, okay, well, I've gotten up to move, and so I can reset. The problem is there are a lot of knowledge workers who are in the zone on their computer for hours. And so when it comes to those folks, it's not easy to get into your body. One, you're not supposed to be. You're not being paid in that moment to be in your body. So what I recommend for those folks is having the knowledge of, okay, when my body is positioned this way, which I need to set my desk at the right height, my chair needs to be positioned well, my monitor needs to be positioned really well. When I'm there, I feel less tired at the end of the day. I feel less wrecked. My neck doesn't hurt as much. Like just those improvements, because the best thing to do is always going to be to get off the computer, right? And so when we can't, it's not necessarily all or nothing. Like if being on the computer is 100%, being off is zero, maybe you hit 80 and that's what you can do today. Or maybe you hit 50, 40, because you have to be on the computer. Is being able to know your body enough and to know your equipment and surroundings enough to adjust in the middle. And that's where people don't know how to operate.
Yeah, will you even walk us through like what is the proper ergonomic way to have a desk set up so that people can bring some mindful attention to whether it's at their home setup or in the office setup or or that they can kind of do the hybrid thing and have both spots really well situated for their bodies?
Yep. So I either start at the chair or the desk. And so I'll just talk about those. So in your chair, I like the ability for the feet to be flat on the floor. Doesn't mean that you can't prop your feet up or sit on one leg versus the other. People ask me that one all the time. I like when the seat pan, which is what our butt sits on, tilts forward about 15 degrees. Because what that does is instead of us sitting on our tailbones, like tucking our tail, which is that rounded kind of Cheeto posture, it forces us to put a little bit of an arch on our back and sit on our ischiotuberosities or our sit bones. And that really kind of sits us up almost like a skewer on our spine. And so we're upright in our upper body. And so I like that little bit of like the hips being open, the hips are higher than the knee, the back is properly supported by the chair. Once you're in that position, I think about where the keyboard is, right? So when we're thinking about desk height and desk position, that desk should be about a quarter of an inch to a half an inch below your elbows at 90 degrees. And I give a little wiggle room. So if like your elbows are bent 90 degrees, let's say 90 degrees to maybe 110 degrees. So maybe the hands are a little bit lower for comfort to decrease some strain on the bicep. But the desk is always going to be in that position, no matter if you are sitting down or standing, which is awesome. So the desk, measure it by the elbows. That's key. From there, monitor is huge. I can't tell you how many times everyone's monitor is kind of facing down. And what we look at is where our head is going to go. So the lower we're looking, our head is just going to fall into that position, particularly as we get stuck in our heads and we're doing that knowledge-based work. So I always recommend put that screen up so that you're in the best seat in the movie theater. Usually it's in the middle, but a little bit higher than center. So the spot where you really do all of your visual work, you want that to be in your sweet spot at the movie theater and kind of work from there because it's going to encourage you to be up more often than not. And then lastly, with the computer monitor is arm distance away. So if you reach your arm out and your monitor is right there, that's perfect. You don't want it too far away. We're going to increase our eye strain. Too close can also increase our eye strain. So that's kind of the quick version of that.
Well, it's so helpful to orient to all of those different places. And I want to circle back to a few things that you said of one, I typically cross my legs when I'm sitting in the chair.
Yeah.
And so I try to balance that with like putting my legs back on the ground and finding more of that neutral pelvis. And I definitely feel, the Pilates teacher in me is like, engage your core, really feel it from your pelvic floor all the way up to the spine. And um and then I've noticed that like I'll catch myself later in the day and I'm rounding and I'm like kind of schlumping or I'm like twisted in my hips and I am moving around to your point. So I'm feeling um good about that, but I can definitely even just see like when I lie down at night, one leg turns out more than the other. And I definitely like, that's probably because of how I choose to sit in my chair and which leg gets crossed. So I love this, like, it's like our body is kind of clay. So the different shapes it takes, we kind of mold to it a little bit. And then circling back to the place about our heads. Oh my God. I don't even think it's just, and I know you'd agree, our monitors and if our head is leaning forward, but with cell phones, right? Our neck, we're constantly looking down and so many more humans are getting more round in the upper
Absolutely.
back and in the back of the neck. So how can we even, what are some ways that you would recommend that we kind of work against that rounding that so naturally wants to happen? And you mentioned this earlier of like how it even kind of closes off our heart. So just like, what are some ways that we can practice getting out of our head, literally like out of our ass here?
Yeah, so you bring up some good points. So with the crossing of the leg, I will say sometimes people that cross their legs are looking for stability. So their feet can't touch the floor, or it doesn't feel really firm, etc. The chair is too big, and they're looking for stability. And it's also possible that they have a little bit of internal hypermobility where their joints are a little bit more relaxed than other people. So they're craving stability. And so we sit on one leg and we sleep with one leg out, or we have a pelvic obliquity, which it sounds like you have. I have that too, but we sleep with one leg in one position, you know. And my recommendation, because again, the method is to not be all or nothing, right? It's not, all right, I'm going to tuck this leg that I always tuck, or I'm going to sit up nice and straight. How do we split the difference? Switch legs. So if we switch legs, one, it feels super weird. It's super weird. It's uncomfortable, but you're putting the strain on the opposite side of your body, which is also just a counter torque to what you're already doing with your wear and tear, if you have any of those diagnoses, say, going on, right? And so that's a really important thing to know. Like, yeah, all or nothing. I would love for no one to cross their legs and no one to tuck their leg under. That's not life, right? We're real people and we have to sit there for a long time. We get bored. Like, it's just like the bed. If we're sleeping in bed, while we're asleep, if our body gets uncomfortable, we move in our sleep. It's the same thing that happens at the computer, right? It's like we get uncomfortable in one position, we find a new one. And that's a totally appropriate response. But we can be cognizant enough, because we are conscious in those moments, switch legs and kind of make it more weird. And then with the rounded posture, like what you mentioned about closing off the heart, not only the heart, it's breathing is almost like consciousness, right? If you are not conscious, you're not breathing, like you're disconnected from the world, right? When we are slouched over, you can lose up to 30% of your lung volume. So we're not taking deep breaths in that position. And when we think about that, our circulation is being impaired. If we're going to take more shallow breaths, usually our breath rate is going to increase, which is going to increase our sympathetic nervous system, so fight or flight. So we're like creeping up on edge just from that body position alone. And so I say that to say knowing that information helps you make choices, because a slouch on its own is not bad. That's why we use it. It's not a bad posture. We just sit in it way too long. So we have to think about, I ask people all the time, I want you to audit your day and workplace, workstation, high value, right? We're there 8 hours, some of us, right? So setting up that workstation, getting the equipment that you need for support, just like your mattress, your pillows that you have, whatever sleep functions you have going on, it's just as important in that arena to make sure that you can, one, have the ability to sit upright and feel supported, and that you can move in between, depending on how you feel that day, from that upright, because I don't want you to be there all day either, from that upright into that slouch. And never, ever, ever a deep slouch, because we do it too much. Reading a book, cell phone, right? So anywhere our vision goes, our head is going to follow. So that's raising up whatever we're looking at, because we're just kind of trying to get out of that bad place. The dishwasher, putting things in and out of the dishwasher, cutting food, it's all forward and kind of down. And so it's thinking about, well, you know what? How do I engage my glutes, my hamstrings, my quads, and almost do like deadlift or squat version, which is really great because sitting down shuts those muscles down anyway. And how do I re-engage those during the day? And I take that pressure off my head, neck, and shoulders. So it's a process of auditing and limiting how often you get into the slouch, and that has to be done consciously until you form new habits. So I recommend all the time, like deadlift or squat the dishwasher.
I love that. I just actually posted today about using the dishwasher as a mindful moment practice to slow down. So I love that invitation to like
cool.
Even just like do a deep squat as you put the plates down or the silverware. And I think the point that you made around take some time to audit, right? This is where our mindfulness muscles come into play, of like where we can bring awareness, curious kind awareness to the present moment, to our bodies, and check in of like, oh, what shape am I in? How long have I been in this shape? What are the various shapes my body takes throughout the days? And how from that place of information can I then start to be a little bit more intentional or conscious about my setup or my switching up? Because I know some people have even standing desks and they practice, standing and sitting and standing and sitting. I'm curious, even your thoughts around that.
I love
Desks.
it. Yeah, I love standing desks. I love the option of having that. I will say movement is the best thing. The best part about sit to stand desks are the transition between the two positions, because once you're in either position for a long period of time, we're going to strain the body. Gravity doesn't leave us, right? When it comes to our lumbar spine and kind of our joints, standing is at a natural, like let's say we have fully healthy aligned body. Standing is less pressure on the low back than sitting. Sitting is almost double. But a lot of people will have some issues with standing, especially initially because their body has changed from sitting. So their hip flexors or the front of their hips have gotten really, really tight. So when they stand and they can't extend those legs fully, the back is going to hyperextend and arch a little bit, which adds more pressure. So there's a little nomenclature there. Like some people, you can't just go, I'm going to stand all day, right? It's like if you have a rock in your shoe, the first 5 minutes is okay. But then after 10 minutes or an hour, you might be screaming. Like the same thing happens when you try to change from those habitual behaviors that we would call poor posture. I like to just say it's like it was an okay posture for too long, into a better posture. Like there is a transition period where it is uncomfortable. You're training your muscles, you're training your spine, your ligaments, your tendons, your proprioceptors, your brain, your cardiovascular system, your respiratory system. You're training all of those systems to do something wildly different for a long period of time. And so I like the sit to stand desk. Just be very cognizant that it's a new change. Like standing is simple for a lot of us able bodied folks, but standing for a long time is not easy. And you have to really think about that. But the more that you sit and stand and you grease the gears, right? The motion is lotion piece of that, your body loves that. Your body loves just get up and go.
Yeah. I mean, I love that you're just emphasizing how our body just wants to move. And I think that's where a lot of listeners can get frustrated is they are typically people who care about their body, who invest in their body, who enjoy movement, but they're in these they're getting paid, as you said, right, to sit and do knowledge-based work. And so they're not able to move their bodies as much. And so I heard you say, like, okay, taking some breaks to do some squats, to do some deadlifts in the moment, to, stretch, to walk up the stairs to a different level where the bathroom is. Are there any other ways that you, when working with your clients, or just know that are inspiring ways to offer more movement breaks in people's busy
Yeah.
days?
I love to habit stack and I like to teach this a lot. So let's say I've got some remote versions, some remote work versions versus, corporate office versions. In the remote setting, so here's some things that I do is first thing in the morning, I get up, I do a little movement prep. I go to the gym. When I come back, I take the stairs. I take the stairs up and down to the gym. Like that's just a habit that I've thrown in there. When I go to the bathroom, I take a lap around my hallway in my apartment building, and then I come back because it's a minute or two. You're not losing any cognitive function. Same thing with opening the refrigerator because you seem to do that a lot when you're at home working, right? Is you open the refrigerator a lot. Is I do a little bit more walking, or I might throw some stretching in there. And it's just really getting to move. Sometimes I will eat sitting on the floor. And so that way I can stretch my legs while I'm doing that. I might eat standing up. So I kind of just throw in some of those basics there. And I'm a regular gym goer, so I'm not necessarily doing exercise all the time, but I might do like some mobility, myofascial release as I think about it and as I feel it. In the office, I tie it into leadership and just the employee, right? Is like you can have standing meetings. You can also you can have standing meetings, you can have walking meetings. You can make sure every single time that you get on a phone call or a video call that you're standing and sitting down, you can bring it down and say, you know what, after I eat food, I stand for 15 minutes. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours at a time, but tie it to something that you're already doing. So you're just reinforcing a habit. Every time I go get my coffee, I walk a lap around the office and then I go back to my desk. So just tying those little bitty pieces in, and those are pretty basic ones. Like I think doing exercise and stretch requires more conscious effort, but some of those just walking and moving around ones don't. And those are really easy to tie into something that you're already doing.
Yeah, I love that reminder of we can keep it so small. And if we connect it to something else we're doing, like if we're getting a glass of water, we can drink a first couple sips standing or something like that. Or I try to schedule at least one walk and talk call a day so that I know I'm like getting extra steps in. I tell my clients who are managers or leaders, like when they do one-on-ones, that they should be doing walk and talks. And I know that can sometimes be challenging where they want to walk, but maybe their employee coworker is not wanting to walk. But I'm like, but lead by example, or take care of yourself, like permission to take care of yourself. And it is doable. I'll listen to webinars and I'll take them on a walk, and I'll pause and I'll take some notes if I need to, in my notes app, or send myself a text or an email. So there are creative ways to add movement because our body does want to move. She
Absolutely.
does want to move. Curious because I know you work a lot with corporations. And so like why would even companies care how their employees are taking care of their bodies? Like, why would they want to invest in information or in ways to help people enhance their posture?
Yeah. And, from an employer perspective, I mean, it will probably sound selfish, but I don't think it is, right? If you're a business, you want to be profitable enough to pay your employees and to progress in whatever field that you are working in. Is the first thing is going to be insurance spend. So there's insurance plans. We've got MSK spend, and so musculoskeletal is in the top two pretty much every year. So it doesn't even matter the industry. It could be construction work, which is obviously that would be really high, any kind of manufacturing, all the way to computer desk jobs. It is in the top two every single year, right? So it's high. It's a high reoccurring problem. We've got absenteeism. So you're in pain and discomfort and you show up to work, but you're just not really there because you got this pain going on, right? That impacts your productivity. It might impact your ability to socialize with your coworkers, to be a good collaborator. So your productivity starts to go down. Then we also sometimes we miss work, right? So we miss work. Not only do we have that, but sometimes we have kids and we're doing elder care and we're doing all this stuff, and we've got PT visits, etc. And we're missing time off work from being productive. And anybody who is in that position as an employee is not happy, right? So it's like a mood killer. So then we've got morale that might not be as boosted because that star person that really kind of kicks it up for the office is down today or down for weeks, and it just changes the entire environment in the office. So it has a lot to do with some of the financial sides of things, the productivity, but also just in the employee experience as a whole. It's how we show up.
I love that you mentioned all of those areas because I think we can just think that like we're these cogs in the wheel, like doing the work, but it's like our bodies are the vehicle, right? That's allowing us to do what we do in this world. And we need to take care of it. And I'm curious, like you mentioned this earlier, and listeners might not know, but like when you mentioned myofascia work, like why is that important to people's bodies?
Yeah, so the fascia is like a wetsuit on our bodies. So everything in us has fascia within it and encasing it and connecting it to everything else. It requires a lot of hydration, which when we're sitting, we dry out in different places. When we don't move something, it dries out a little bit from a soft tissue perspective, or we get snags there when there's injuries. So scar tissue really will be like if we think about someone having a surgery and their muscles went like this, everything is kind of aligned. Now we've separated everything and then we sewed it back. Like on the surface, things look like there's a scar, but it's a deep fissure of scar where there's no more communication going on between those tissues because the fascia has been severed, the muscles have been severed, etc. And so that's how we transfer energy. It's how our body communicates. And so sometimes when we loosen that up, other systems, I mean, I can release my feet right now and my hips feel better. I can release my neck and my TMJ, my jaw feels better. My head tension feels better. So everything is connected to everywhere. Fascia is like, if you're old enough and remember wool sweaters, I remember from back in the day, you get a snag in a wool sweater, it literally like runs up the shirt, right? That's fascia. You get a snag somewhere in the fascia, the tension has to build up in all the other places because it's a closed system. And so it is really important to keep it hydrated, to keep it loose, keep it moving, and to take care of it and to activate muscle potentials while that system is healthy.
I love how you described our fascia because, I think a lot of us who do have movement practices, we think like, okay, we're working our muscles and we're strengthening and we're toning, but we forget how important taking care of the fascia is. And I know for me personally, I went a few years without doing this and I started to have tremendous um, like tightness in my low back because I wasn't rolling out. I wasn't taking care of my fascia. So now every morning, that's part of my ritual is using a foam roller and rolling out my whole body for like 10 minutes if I can. And it makes a world of a difference. I can actually like feel my feet if I go for a walk versus them kind of like feeling like they're tightening up in my arches.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel even just the back of my shoulder blades like way more open, and my heart can be way more open. Or anyway, it's a world of a difference. And so I think how you just described us, I hope listeners are empowered to take care of their fascia because that is, I think, a huge piece to us living more in our bodies.
Oh, absolutely. And what you said is spot on from a physical therapy perspective. A lot of times where the pain showed up wasn't where the dysfunction was. And so for the listeners, it's like taking the idea if you grab up your shirt and you pull it away from your body, right? If you pull that away, what's in your hand, you can move freely. Like that's the dysfunction. But if I'm pulling from my right front of my chest, I've got a lot of tension from my shirt on my left shoulder from pulling away to the right in my shirt. And so my shoulder is more likely going to hurt before this front on my right does because the dysfunction gets to move freely because it's locked up. And like we don't put tension through it, we don't bother it, we don't activate it, nothing. But this left shoulder now has to work a lot harder to do anything. And that's where my injury is going to show up.
God, I love these visual examples and these descriptions. You make it so easy to understand these different layers of our body. Dr. Krys, thank you so much for inspiring us to get more centered within our bodies and all the different ways to just bring some mindful attention to how we move and be and breathe into these human bodies that are miracles. And as we age or as things happen, like the different ways that we also even just have to care for ourselves. Where can people learn more about you and stay connected to your amazing work?
Yeah, you can find my website at www.khergowellness.com. I have education resources that are available at ergonomicmastery.com. And then you can also find me on LinkedIn.
Amazing. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It was such a pleasure, as always.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of the Center in the City podcast. I am so curious to hear your takeaways. Feel free to reach out to Dr. Krys and I on Instagram or on LinkedIn and share what's resonating with you the most. My wish for you is that you got a lot of information today that can empower you to be more present and conscious of the different shapes and ways that you move and be in your body throughout your day. As Dr. Krys beautifully said, movement is medicine and motion is lotion. Our body naturally craves to move and be. And I know we can feel like we're prisoners to our desks and to our jobs, but today we shared so many practical ways that you can take action to be in your body in a more loving and kind way for not only yourself, but for your body and for your longevity. I welcome you to share this episode with at least one person in your life that you know can benefit from being empowered of how to move and be in their body. Thank you for being here. Thank you for letting us into your ears, your heart, your mind. And until next time, stay centered.